Well, it is a beautiful summer morning and I am nestled in the cockpit of a 2022 Subaru BRZ, the second generation. The first generation came out 9 years ago in 2013. They've had a long time to think about how to improve this car, and they have made some changes. The question I'm going to answer today is this the best BRZ ever? Now let's first talk about the changes that they've made. There are some big ones. First of all, 50% more torsional chassis rigidity when compared to the previous model. It's a lot stiffer in terms of structure. You also have 20% more engine. It is a 2.4 liter engine instead of a 2.0, which we used to have. And with that, you get a bump in horsepower, up by 23 horsepower to a total of 228 versus 205 you used to get with the older engine. And you get 30 more pound-feet of torque. And like a lot of us during COVID, the BRZ has gained a little bit of weight. It's now 39 pounds heavier and weighs 2,815 pounds versus the 2,776 pounds it weighed when it debuted. So all in all, I think a good trade for more rigidity and more power. Just before we set off here, I want to talk about this car that we're driving. Now the BRZ starts at $30,495. This tester, as you see it, is the Sport Tech version for $33,495. Freight is $1,900 additional onto both of those prices. Now basically, once you've chosen the trim level of the BRZ, the only option you have is like what color you want it and what transmission you should get it with. We'll talk more about the transmission here in a little bit, but basically there aren't a ton of options on this car. You just get a BRZ, the base or the Sport Tech, manual or automatic. It's the same engine, it's the same car. That Sport Tech package gives you 18-inch wheels, LED adaptive headlights, heated seats, and leather suede seating. Now, enough jibber jabber, let's hit the road and I'll tell you what this car is like to drive. The things we like about the BRZ, I'm happy to tell you, they're still present. It still handles like it always did. It's just eager to rotate. It feels light on its feet. It feels nimble. And what we do have is more of the things we wish it used to have, which is a new thing for the BRZ called torque. I'm in third gear, and the car moves. That is new. There's no longer a torque dip in the middle, which frustrated us for like 9 years driving this car. The engine is now just a little sweetheart. It's red lines at about 7,000 RPM. It's got decent mid-range. It sounds fun. It's finally the engine that this car has deserved all along. And 228 horsepower doesn't sound like a lot, but it feels like it. Now what does that power feel like in the BRZ? I'll show you. Shift light, second gear, and we still haven't beat the speed limit. With the BRZ, it's not slow. It never feels slow, but you get to savor that acceleration. You get to be a part of it. With so many really fast cars, you just plant your foot and it goes and you're already at jail speeds. Not with this. You can just knock it down a gear, lean into it, and just savor the act of driving. It's so enjoyable to drive this car. I've also noticed that this car has some, shall I say, enhanced sounds I hear in the cabin. You're probably hearing it through the microphones as well. Driving the BRZ feels like a sports car should. The ratios are tight, closely spaced. The gear shifter does pretty much what I want it to do. And it's not as perfect as the gold standard of shifters, the Mazda MX-5, but this is a good shifter. The other thing that's great about this car is that when you press the traction control off button, it's really off. It just lets you go slide around and do whatever you want to do. Let's talk about the ride. It's the sporty side of comfortable. This car doesn't have a sport mode. It doesn't have adaptive dampers. It just kind of is what it is every day, all the time. The ride is in no way what I would call harsh. It's just perfect. This car does just kind of scoot over the bumps a little bit. It just makes you feel more involved in the driving experience, to just feel the road a little bit. Let's also talk about this driving position. One of my favorite things about this car is how you sit in it. The wheel is almost vertical in front of you. You sit down low, your butt just skimming across the pavement. It's a proper sports car seating position. Now, that's only if you're sitting in the front. The back seats remain basically ornamental. This is a pretty small back seat, really only good for short trips, maybe children. but they're there, they exist, you can put a backpack in them, that's about all they're good for. The trunk is also reasonable for a car of this size, but you're not buying this car for the cargo capacity. Now, this car comes in at a pretty amazing price, just around $30,000 in Canada. And the only reminder you have of that low entry point is the interior. I like the way it's shaped. It is shaped for the business of driving, but it's pretty obviously a value-conscious product, shall we say. There's not a lot of bright work in here. The textures are very close to what I would call plastic. And aside from the really well-shaped and well-done seats, there's not a lot of premium in here. Of course, this is a car that costs less than an MX-5, less than a Golf R, way less than a performance Mustang. In fact, it's the most affordable rear-wheel drive sporty car you can buy. In the end, I feel confident to call this the best sports car value out there. I don't think anything gives you as much fun for the money as this car. Front-wheel drive, hatchbacks, you name it, this is the most fun per dollar. Okay, so now I'm gonna answer the question that I asked at the beginning of this video. Is it better than the old one? And the answer is so obviously yes. This thing is so much better than the original. Just the little tweaks they made, mostly the new engine, the stiffer chassis, you can feel both those improvements in this new car, and it makes it more satisfying to drive. And that singular purpose is so rare in 2022 that I can't think of another car other than the MX-5 that exists for the same reasons of innocent, humble driving joy. And in that one area that this car was built to do, it excels. It is the most fun you can have for the money. It is a perfect car on a winding back road. Subaru has done an excellent job of making this car as good as it could be and actually listening to our years of reviews and making this car even better than it already was. So is it the best BRZ ever? Absolutely. Well, at least until they build a turbocharged version. And when they do, you can see that review on Driving.ca. For Driving.ca, I'm Clayton Seams.